water. It refreshes and sustains us. It gives life and nourishment. It feeds families and powers economies. Water surrounds us. From all sources, it flows, seemingly inexhaustible, and yet it is in danger of running out. Freshwater sources are threatened, put under pressure by our demands, misused and exploited. Rapid urbanization, overpopulation, development, and climate change have put strain on our resources. Mitigating the impact of these conditions on our environment and economy is one agency responsible for managing the water resources in the Philippines. We are the National Water Resources Board.
The National Water Resources Board, or NWRB, is the primary agency of the national government mandated to manage the country's water resources. With this core function, what we do is we regulate the use of water resources all over the country through the issuance of a water permit. Aside from this, the NWRB also regulates the provision of water system by the private water utilities or service providers through the issuance of what we call a certificate of public convenience. And likewise, the National Water Resources Board is also considered as the main coordinator of our country's water-related programs, as well as in the development of policies related to the management of our country's water resources.
Our mission is to ensure access to safe and adequate water supply at acceptable rates and levels of service. Allocate sufficient water to ensure food security and spur the country's economic development, and protect the water environment to preserve flow regimes, biodiversity, and cultural heritage, as well as mitigating water-related hazards. To fulfill this threefold mission, the NWRB formulates policies and coordinates with the relevant stakeholders, as well as implementing economic and resource regulations. Policies for the Philippine water sector are formed within the ideals of the Water Code of the Philippines and the framework of the Integrated Water Resources Management.
To effectively implement the policies and regulation of the board, water resources studies and researches are conducted in order to assess the water availability, especially in water-constrained areas. The science-based information is used as basis to formulate policies to protect and conserve the country's water resources.
The NWRB conducts water resources assessment nationwide in Luzon, in Visayas, and Mindanao to see to it that water is being protected and being managed efficiently.
Local and foreign assisted water resources plans, programs, and projects are implemented by the board in coordination with other government agencies and private entities. We collect science-based data and information to formulate policies and thresh out issues related to water resources development and management. The NWRB also serves as the head of the technical working group in charge in regulation and control of water resources from the Angat Dam.
NWRB is the one managing actually the releases for Angat Dam to optimize the use of water. It takes into consideration all of the domestic water supply and the irrigation needs of Manila and Bulacan farmlands in order to supply the necessary requirements of water with regards to the requirements of NIA and MWSS. Sila yung bali tumata yung decision maker o nag-a-approve ng mga allocations for water releases from Angat Dam.
Keeping citizens informed of the latest developments in the water sector, the board conducts advocacy campaign and information drive, highlighting the efficient use of water resources.
To inform stakeholders and citizens on the development of NWRB's regulations, including policies issued, the NWRB regularly conducts seminars and IEC activities on the Water Code of the Philippines, the role of NWRB, as well as the importance of regulation.
To guarantee the efficient and beneficial use of water, the NWRB regulates water resources through the water rights system.
Article 13 of the Water Code provides, and I quote, "No person, including government instrumentalities and government-owned or controlled corporation, shall appropriate water without a water right, which shall be evident by the water permit." So every person who intends to utilize water should first secure a water permit from the National Water Resources Board.
One function of the NWRB is the resource regulation. So usually, we measure the flow of this river para malaman natin kung ano yung dapat nating i-grant sa mga proponents who wish to utilize the river. Just like this river that we measured, this is intended for power generation project proposed by the one proponent.
Water rights grantees are allowed to appropriate the use of water sources for the following purposes: domestic, municipal, irrigation, power generation, fisheries, livestock raising, industrial, recreational. The NWRB issues water permits, which are proof of water rights. As outlined in the Water Code, we regulate the use of all water resources, including allocation, conservation, and protection consistent with sustainable development. As the economic regulator of water service providers, the NWRB balances the interests of their customers and WSPs by ensuring obligations are met, water is delivered at a fair and reasonable tariff, and the government's policy objectives on providing access to potable water are achieved, while WSPs still remain financially viable. Water service providers need to secure a certificate of public convenience from the NWRB to be able to operate legally.
National Water Resources Board regulate through the issuance of a Certificate of Public Convenience. This proceeds from the provision of the Public Service Law, which states that no public service shall operate in the Philippines without possessing a certificate known as Certificate of Public Convenience.
Water tariffs for WSPs are set by the NWRB. The board requires operators of private waterworks systems to submit reports on their finances and operations to determine the rate of return, which should not exceed 12%. As part of our functions, the NWRB monitors and enforces rules and regulations. The board verifies if water permit holders meet the conditions stipulated in their permit and checks whether CPC grantees abide by the modified standard rules and regulations. Unwarranted water appropriators extracting water without permit and water service providers operating without CPC are also monitored by the NWRB.
The board either imposes penalties for administrative violation or penalize them by suspension or revocation of grantees' water permit. Compliant grantees are still subjected to periodic monitoring in the future to ensure its continuous compliance.
The demand for water continues to grow, and our water supply might imminently reach a point of deficit. To ensure that future generations continue to enjoy the benefits of this precious resource, the National Water Resources Board is committed to efficiently manage our water resources and steadfastly uphold water security. By nurturing relationships with partners and stakeholders in the water sector and improving the regulation of water use, we can fulfill our vision for the country. Water for all. Water for all. The National Water Resources Board, managing our water resources for a better tomorrow.